I was out at the range shooting my P-09 the other day, which of course has the Omega trigger system in it, and I was doing some reload drills with this new Springer Precision magwell, and I had an interesting failure that ultimately ended up in a dead trigger in single and double action, and so I want to describe the failure, show you what happened, and describe how I fixed it, and this will apply to the P-07, the P-09, and metal frame Omega firearms, the 75B Omega and the P-01 Omega, but I'll show you why I think it's less likely in this gun. So to describe the failure, when I was shooting, I started shooting it, and I was doing draw drills, so I was shooting double action, then I was shooting single action, and no matter what, after I shot it, the trigger would stick to the rear, the slide would reciprocate, hammer would be recocked, and then the trigger would just stay here, and I had actually reach in there and pull it forward and reset it. So that was the first indication that something was wrong. And then that quickly turned into, okay, it started resetting again, but there was no audible click or no tactile feedback that it was resetting, but I was able to fire normally. And then it got to the point where the trigger was just completely dead. It wouldn't actuate the hammer in double or single action. Based on the nature of the failure, I had an idea that it was something to do with the trigger bar, as that is what moves as the trigger is reset, and that's what is disconnected as the slide reciprocates. So when I got home, I dropped the magazine and I looked in here, and this spring, the trigger bar support spring, was gone. And so that's a problem, you know. And luckily for me, when I pulled the magazine out at home, it fell out of the magwell onto my carpet. And also, even more lucky for me, I didn't find it by stepping on it and having it stab me. I found it with my eyes and then my hands. So what I did is I reinstalled the trigger bar spring, and then did a little searching on some internet forums, and I saw that Omega firearms, they only have this one trigger bar spring and this single-sided trigger bar, whether it's a polymer P-07, P-09, or whether it's a metal framed gun, and there is an issue with these coming out. There's a little leg that goes down in a hole right here, and then it comes back and interfaces up in a little groove in the bottom of the trigger bar. And so what the forum posts were saying is that for one reason or another, these get dislodged, or the tip breaks off of them or something. I don't see an indication that the tip broke off of this, so it just must have gotten dislodged. So the other thing that the forums were saying specifically about the P-07 and P-09 is that some magazines, when you insert them all the way, may interfere with this. And the other thing is that I'm always tinkering on my guns, and there's a distinct possibility I just did not insert it enough into its hole right here in the frame when I was working on it last time. So I reinstalled the trigger bar spring. Everything worked fine, all good to go. And then I put my magazines in. I think I have only the factory ones for the P-09 and my P-10, and then for my 75B Omega, I do have some Metgar ones. So you can see that when that magazine is in there, the body of that magazine is really, really close to that spring down in there. So, being that I had this new magwell and I was practicing some reloads and banging my magazines in there, there is a possibility that a magazine went in there a little bit wibbly wobbly and knocked that spring out of its pocket here in the frame. So, people were complaining of that with Metgar magazines, aftermarket magazines with a slightly oversized body, hitting this trigger bar support spring right here. So, what I found is a quick fix for this, and what may prevent it from happening again if indeed the magazine contacting it is the issue, is you reach in here, kind of put your finger right there so it can't pop out, and you pry that out from underneath your trigger bar. And then what I did is I grabbed it right here with a pair of pliers. You can even grab it with your thumb. And then take the screwdriver or something and bend this part of the trigger bar over. And what that'll do is that will put this straight spring, it'll put a bend in it this way. And so now mine has a slight bend kind of right at this little step or notch in it. And so now when I put this back underneath my trigger bar, this part of the spring is further that way up against the inside of the frame, and it's further away from the magazine being able to contact it. So I have shot this since. Everything's working fine after I put the spring back in and then did that little bend to it. But I will keep monitoring it, obviously. And then when you're done, you can just pop the trigger bar spring right back under there. Make sure you don't lose it out of here. Otherwise, you're going to have to take more things apart. But you can see that this little elbow of it right here is up against the inside of the frame on this side before it was spaced off and closer into the mag well. So if you have a CZ P-07 or a P-09, it might be a good idea to do what I just described. Pop the end of this out, grab this with a pair of pliers, and then bend this end over a little bit so this is closer to the side of the frame and further away from your magazines, if indeed these trigger bar springs can be knocked loose by aftermarket magazines with larger bodies or aggressive mag changes or mag over insertion or whatever the case may be. Now, here's a look at that same trigger bar spring. It's a little bit different on this CZ75B Omega. And here's a aftermarket Metgar magazine. Putting this in there, there's quite it may be hard to see in the video, but there's a decent amount of space between the trigger bar spring and the magazine body. So I'm not worried about that failure happening on this particular gun. My guess would be that the trigger bar spring in this one is going to be about the same as the P-01 Omega, and really this issue would probably only need to be worried about on the polymer frame Omega trigger system P-07, P-09 pistols. So anyways, that was my experience with this failure on my CZ P-09, and I hope this video is helpful to the 2 of you who may find it if you have a dead trigger on your CZ Omega trigger system. Thanks for watching.